What's up guys, Jacob here, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to do a Photoshop tutorial on this channel since I really like Photoshop and I'd like to kind of show everyone how to kind of use it for something that we did recently. So you'll notice our new, I'll overlay our new channel icon right now, and you can see that it's kind of silhouettes of Clark and I. Now obviously I look a little bit more like a Jedi than I usually do. When I hit keys, it'll show you which keys I hit, and that'll make your life a little easier, hopefully. So I'm going to go through this kind of quick. If you want one, I can give you a more in-depth tutorial. But for now, I thought this would be pretty good, to do, just to kind of test the waters on this. So let's get into it. So we're going to go File, New, and actually, I'm just going to go ahead and set it up in just regular paper size. So if you go up here, you can do US paper into your document type, US paper. It sets it up 8.5 by 11, and you want your resolution to be 300 or more. Now that doesn't matter a whole lot, but it will later on. And you can either do RGB or CMYK. Again, that really doesn't matter. RGB is good for web development and things. CMYK is good for printing because that's the color that most printers use. So in my background contents, I always do transparent, and that's pretty much it. That's all for that. So we'll call this one okay. So say okay, and that'll bring this up here. So I really like the essentials layout. I don't really change it a whole lot. You can change it depending on what you want to do, but this is fine for me. It gets done what I need, and I'm gonna keep it on this. So if you're not on Essentials, go ahead and set it up that way. Click Essentials, it'll load this right here. So this is what it should look like. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to File, Open, and go and find the image you're wanting to use. So actually, what we're shooting for here, we want it to look like this. Now you'll notice I'm gonna definitely keep this here for the time being, but that's essentially what we want it to look like. So what you want to do, actually this really doesn't matter, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm actually going to go ahead and just close that. So what you want to do to get your project going is go to File, Open, and then find whatever you want to use for this. So it should be in Faces, and yes, it's right here. So we're going to use Clark's face for this, and we're going to shoot for this. So actually this is the same image I used for that. So hopefully we can make it look pretty similar to what it did before. So I'm going to be using a lot of macros and key commands and things for this, and you'll see me using it down here, hopefully in this little region. And I've got the opacity turned down and things so you can see through it. So it should make life a little bit easier for you. Actually going to turn off my sound here so you don't get deafened by that. But that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and start. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my lasso tool, and I'm just quickly going to just go around the shape of his head as best I can. And that's all for now. So if you so after we have that selected, you want to go over here and click this little unlock button. Then we're going to create a new layer down here and put that underneath that layer. So we'll call this head. We'll call this background, BG for background. So after you do this, after you have it selected, you want to make sure your head is selected. Actually, I deselected it. So make sure your head layer is selected, and you right click that, and you want to select inverse. So what that's going to do, you have to have your lasso or some other selection tool open when you do that. So right click, select inverse. What that's going to do is it's going to select the opposite of what was selected before. Now all you have to do is click delete, and that will delete everything here. So that's pretty much it. So Control D will deselect everything, and V will select your move tool. So just center that up just as best as you can. Try to follow the guides, and the guides here are kind of off, I will say. So we'll just eyeball the center right there. So now I'm going to do Control Plus and kind of get in closer. Not too close. You know what? This will be fine. So we want to select our magic wand tool. So you want to go ahead and do W, and then you can also do Shift W to switch back and forth between your quick selection tool and your magic wand tool. But for purposes now, we're just going to use the magic wand tool. And we're just going to go up here to our tolerance, and I believe 50 worked okay. You can kind of play with this depending on how how many different colors are in your background or if it's shaded or anything. Basically, the tolerance is just going to choose how much of that color is affected. So what different shades of that color are affected. So that's a little much. So let's try 30. Perfect. So we'll use 30 here. And you just want to go through and select all of the colors you don't particularly need. And that'll pretty much sum up this part. If you're not able to do it the way I'm doing it, and you're not actually selecting more than one thing at a time, what you can do is go up here, and you see these little areas here, and what you can actually do is you're probably selecting this one. You're probably on just single new selection. What you want to do is go over to this one, this add to selection option, and select that. That way you can add as many selections as you want, and it will all apply towards one single selection. So it will add all those selections together. So now that we're to this point, you want to really focus on one half of the face. Now, that's really all you need to focus on. Everything else is unnecessary. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab my eraser tool. I'm going to select E for my eraser tool, Control plus and Control minus to zoom in and out. And we're going to make sure, first of all, our hardness is at 100. And what you're going to do is you're just going to go along here and just delete everything that isn't a part of what you want. So this should be fairly easy. And this right side of the face, or the left side of his face, is the side I'm not going to worry too much about. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show here, let's go ahead and select V to show our move tool. And what we're going to do is show our rulers. So if your rulers aren't showing, Control R will show your ruler or hide it, and you want to right click your ruler and make sure it says %, and you'll notice this 50% is half of your document. I'll zoom out so you can kind of see this better. So if you go over to your ruler, you click and drag over, you'll get a guide, and that guide you want to set up to exactly 50%, and it'll show you your X position right there, 50%. If you have trouble lining it up to that and it keeps snapping to the picture, just move your picture and you should be able to just move it and snap right onto that 50. And then this will snap onto the 50 as well. There's the middle point. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bigger. When you resize something, if this happens and it gets kind of squat, if you hold shift, it will maintain aspect and zoom in. So that's a pretty easy way to work with that. Just hit the check mark. Okay, so now that we are here, what I'm going to do is a little weird. So I am gonna erase everything in here that I don't want. So if I wanted his eyebrows, I'd erase everything but his eyebrows. In this case, I don't want anything but his hair and his beard and his little mustache area here. This little thing. So what we're gonna do, instead of just selecting this, we are going to go here, and I'm gonna just take my eraser tool, and I'm pretty much just going to erase. Now, we can do it this way. This is an easy way to do it. It will take a little bit of time to go through, or you can do it this way. So I'm going to Control Z out of there, and I'm going to grab our wand tool again, which should be, let's see here, W, and I'm going to just delete all of this stuff. Or, there's another thing you can do. Make sure your head layer is selected. This will make it even easier. And you want to go up to Select, Color Range, and pick a skin tone. And so what you'll see here is that there's an alpha matte, there's an alpha channel applied here. So it's going to select everything that's in white. So in order to select that, you can move the fuzziness around, and it will affect more or less of the image. Now you can move around here while clicking and get different shades. And you want to find a shade that will remove less hair and less of pretty much everything there. So that's it. That's essentially all. So if you go to the plus button, you can add more colors to that selection. but we are going to not do that. I'm going to go ahead and subtract some of the colors, and we'll say OK. So what that's going to do is this. That is going to select all of this stuff, and all you have to do now is hit delete. That's it. Now you can do it that way if what you're trying to make a silhouette of is actually, you know, one color. That'll make it easier. But mine is not one color. So I'm going to go back into here, and I'm just going to use a good old eraser. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go through and do a rough erase of everything that we need. And we'll zoom in here now. The bracket keys are going to make your brush smaller or larger. And we're just going to go through and erase everything we don't need. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to zoom all the way out, and we're going to grab our marquee tool, which is actually G. No, never mind, just kidding. What is that, M? I've never used that key command before. M, yeah, so we're going to grab M, and Shift M will switch between elliptical and rectangular, but you want to make sure your guide is on halfway here, that little green line, and you want to grab your guide, click right in the middle of it, and you're just going to drag that marquee tool all the way down, making sure it's right on that guide. So you can move it after you do it left and right with the arrow keys, but for the most part it's right on the guide. So basically what you're going to want to do before you do that, I forgot a step here. So we're going to deselect this, and we're going to use that guide to kind of straighten out our image. So you'll notice that right here it's in the center, but up here it's really not too close to the center. So I'm just going to maneuver it so it's centered here, and then down here it should be pretty close. I can just kind of move it around here just a little bit. Okay, just kind of roughly center, and that's gonna make it look a little bit better. Right around there is the center point, and then what you can do is you can go up here, you want to hit the check mark, you want to go to Edit, Transform, Skew, and you can take this and just kind of skew his head a little bit just so it's right in the center of his forehead. And that's going to make sure that both parts are about as center as you can get. Now, it's impossible to be perfect, so what we're going to do is kind of create a form of perfection. So you want to hit M to get your marquee tool back. You want to make sure you're right on that line. Select everything on the side you're not using. Then just hit delete. By now you probably know where I'm going with this. So hit V to bring up your move tool, or just click the move tool. And you'll want to go over here to your layer and hit Control J to duplicate that layer. And what you're going to do is go to Edit, Transform, and you're going to flip that horizontally. So then we're going to use our arrow key to just move it right over. You can use your mouse to do it, but this is a little more precise. So this is pretty much it. So we're manufacturing perfection here. So get rid of your center point and zoom way in on a point where you can tell something is wrong, and select and deselect it to make sure it's right on the money. So little gap, move it over 1 pixel, and there we go. That's it. So this is our made for perfection. So that's it. This is what it looks like. That's how it's done. This is very destructive, so make sure you create a save. You probably should have said that earlier. This is very destructive. Make sure you set up save points or something, or backups in case you're doing something different. I did not. You should have. If you didn't, I apologize. I didn't think to tell you. But this is it. Now we've manufactured the perfection. Everything else looks fine, but what we're going to do is what we did earlier. So we're going to select both of these head layers with Shift or Control, and we're going to right click those and merge them into one layer, and that's just going to be called head again. And to rename, you just double click in there and hit enter. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that's selected, go to select, color range, and that same color is still selected, and it looks completely fine here. So everything we want is selected. So you can adjust your fuzziness however much or however little you want and hit OK. And then we're going to just hit delete a couple of times and deselect that. Okay, so this is what we're left with. So what you want, if your person has a beard or if what you're silhouetting has a beard, you want there to be an illusion of a beard. Just like there was here, you want there to be an illusion of kind of scruff, or you want it to look like it's scruffy, or like my hair, his hair looks nice and smooth. Even my little goatee has just a little bit of scruff on it. So his turned out really well. That's why I'm using his for this tutorial. So we're going to go back into this, and I'm just going to zoom out. So this is what we've got. This is it so far. Now, this is going to be a really long tutorial. I apologize. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible, but this is kind of a complicated process. So what we're going to do now is over here, we are going to select our layer, and we're going to hold control down, and we are going to click on the image thumbnail, and that's going to make a selection of everything we have here that has information in it. So everything that's not transparent completely is going to be selected. Now you'll notice everything in here has been erased. It's just all the stuff we want. So go over here, and you can click this little button here to create black and white, black foreground, white background, or you can switch them with this button. We want black foreground. You can also click in that little thing and pick a black or whatever color you want, really. This is the point where you pick your color. So pick a color you want. I'm going to do black just because it'll be easier to see. And what we're going to do is grab our brush tool, select B, make sure your hardness is all the way up. You can make it huge if you want to, and then just fill in by clicking a freaking ton. And what that's going to do, once you deselect, is make this little thing look pretty freaking cool. So we still want there to be some polygonal effect here, and that's going to take shape later on. But for now, this is fine. I'm going to hit Control Z, Alt Control Z a couple times just to get away from some of that stuff, but this looks great. This is going to be perfect. So at this point, you're going to want to go through, grab your brush tool, use the bracket keys to make it as small as you can, and you're going to want to bring your hardness down probably between 0 and 20%, and you're just going to fill in everything you want. Everything you want, just fill it right in, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to speed this part up just for the interest of time, but just fill in whatever you want, essentially. Okay, so I've got it really to a point that I enjoy. I think it looks fine. So perfection at this point is kind of tossed out the window. Everything's lined up kind of correctly. Everything's proportional. What is not correct is like some of the spacing here, some of the the trimming done with his beard, and everything's going to be just a little bit different than it was. So, excuse me, this is it. This is what it's going to look like. So you don't have to worry about some of these little fuzzy spots or anything that's not perfect here. What you do need to worry about is leaving some fray where there's hair. That's pretty much it. So after this point, what we're going to do, we're going to make sure this background layer, whatever color you chose, is deselected, the little eyeball, or you can delete it, or whatever you want to do. And we're going to make sure this is selected, and you're just gonna hold the control button and just click on the thumbnail, and you're gonna want to grab your wand tool, select inverse, and just delete 2 times here, one or 2 times depending on what you want it to look like, and then that's it. I'm gonna actually control Z1. I'm just gonna go with 1 time. So this is what it is thus far. So what we're gonna do now, there's one more program you need for this. It's gonna be Adobe Illustrator. Now I know a lot of people don't like Adobe Illustrator. You only have to click like 2 buttons, so that's it. That's all you have to do, and then adjust some settings. So we're gonna go ahead and open that up live here. So you want a file, you want to save it as, you're just gonna save it as a JPEG, and save it into faces. We'll call it tutorial, and save it at maximum quality, and just say okay. It's gonna be a really small file. So now you're just gonna open up Illustrator. This may take just a second to actually open, just because I have Photoshop open. And I'm gonna close out of Photoshop. No. So while Illustrator is opening up, hopefully, yes, here we go. It's thinking. I just updated it. I haven't opened it up since the update. So we're gonna go File and Open, and you're gonna go find. Sorry, this is a project I'm working on. We're gonna go find that picture we just saved. So it's in Faces, and it was Tutorial. I've done this a couple other times, so sorry. So this is it right here. So just open that up. It should open just like this, and that's essentially it. So what you're going to want to do is go over here. Oh, actually, sorry. We don't want that to be shown yet. So you go over here into your artboard. So over here there's a little thing. You click on that, or you can click on this for your artboards. This is artboard 1. So we're going to add a new artboard. And we're actually going to, let's see here, go over here. There's a little like funky looking thing here. Click on that, or you can do, I think it's Control O or Alt O. It's Shift O, sorry. So we're going to do that, and we are going to write. Let's see. Sorry, I don't use Illustrator too much. So once we're here, you're going to go up to here, this area, and you're going to kind of adjust the sizes here. So we are going to make sure that it's a portrait mode thing. That's it. Once you're there, just drag your opened up thing into here, adjust the size, hold Shift to maintain aspect ratio, and just put it right there. Right in the middle of the artboard. Use the guides to make you know when it's centered. And I'm going to grab this, grab over here, delete that artboard, and here we go. So this is it. This is where you're at so far. Make this whatever size you want. Make sure it's centered, however you want it to be set up. Now this is the point where you'd want to pick the size you want. So if you're putting it on like a shirt, then you're going to want to, my dog is barking, sorry. If it's on a shirt, you're going to want to make it the size of whatever shirt you're doing, and you know, wherever you want to put it. Say you want it on the breast, it's going to be about like this. But that's it. So once we're here, close this down. Select your object with the select tool up here, or you can hit V, just like that. That's it. Just hit V, and it selects it. And you want to go over here to Window. You're not going to see this at first, so you're going to go to Window. You're going to want to go to Image Trace. Make sure this is selected. And once this is open, you want to, mine is docked. Yours is going to look differently, but it's going to do the same thing. So you want to go to Presets, and you're going to do Silhouettes. Ready for this? Bam! That's it. So that's all you have to do. Now you can go to Advanced here, and you can adjust how many paths you have, and that's going to make it look even a little cooler. I like more paths personally, and then the corners, you want to make more corners, and you want to go ahead and make the noise a little bit lesser, and it'll kind of round it out a little bit, and that's essentially all. Now you can adjust the threshold, and that looks good to me. That's it. That's the entirety of this tutorial. Now you can change it to a lot of different things. If there's color in what you're doing, you can set this preset to high fidelity photo, and it'll look kind of polygonal. other than that, you can just control whatever settings you're using and adjust it. Now, the cool thing about using Illustrator for this in that way is that it traces the photo and makes it a vector. So whatever your canvas size is the size when it prints, it will be crisp. So I zoom all the way in, and the image never loses any sort of anything really. It's constantly going to be crisp. There's going to be no pixelation. There's zero compression. And here's the way you're going to want to save this. So if you want to save this as an 8.5 by 11 like this is, then let's see, Shift O for artboard. So here's your artboard number 2. This is an 8.5 by 11. If I wanted to make that bigger or smaller, I would just adjust it here with these little, intersections, but I'm not going to. There are also various presets here you can choose from, but I'm just going to keep it on letter size. So what you want to do, this is not going to be something you can actually, just send to someone in an email. It's going to be too big of a file to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to go over here to File, you're going to export this, and you're going to export this as a .tif or a TIFF. Now that is completely lossless. That's just like a PDF. You can export it as that too. But what a TIFF is going to do is it's going to maintain every layer you have, and it's going to maintain every single pixel that you have. There's going to be zero pixelation. When you print it, it's going to be crisp every single time. So when you click export, that's all you have to do. Make sure your color mode's set to a printer that you print on. So when you export TIFF and you're going to print it and there's color, you want to export that in CMYK. If you're going to export that as just anything on the web, RGB or grayscale if you want a smaller file size. We're going to do RGB today, and we're going to set this to high. Now if you're using a screen or internet, you really just need 72 pixels per inch or DPI. If you're going to be printing, you want high. Anything 300 or more is going to look fine. Now if it's going to go on like a shirt or something, you may want like 450 to 500 just to be sure, but we're just going to do high for now. And as for anti-aliasing, you really don't have to have any. We're going to do art optimize just so that there are edges, just so that the edges are smooth. You can do type optimize as well, which is just a hint, just a little bit of sampling. But that is it. We don't want any sort of compression. We don't need any sort of profile. That's all. So just click OK. It's gonna write to the TIFF. And if we go open it now, let me just pull this over here. If we go open it now, you are gonna see. You see where it saved this guy right here. There it is. So the size in pixels is 1,557 by 2,943. If I open that up, that is 8.5 by 11 exactly, pretty much. It's going to save the entire artboard. Now this, when printed, is going to, let's see if I can bring up a dialog here that you can see it as. So here's the dialog. When you print it, you want to deselect fit picture to frame, and it's going to fit that edge to edge on letter or whatever size you're doing. You can also select 8 by 10 and various other things, but when you print this, it's going to look just like it did on the screen with really little to no pixelization. Sorry, couldn't think of the word. Little to no pixelization, and that's it. This has been a really long tutorial. I'm going to try my best to cut it down a little bit, but I'd like to thank you guys so much for sitting through this with me and watching me do this. If you have any questions at all, leave them down in the comment section below, or ask me on Twitter at TheJacobReview. Links down in the description below, as well as a link to Creative Cloud if you don't have it set up yet. Thanks guys so much for watching this video, and as always, have an awesome day.